Reading a romance book on a beach is a top tier reading experience. Through and through, my favorite movie, hands down, of all time is Rocky. I did play competitive for a long time and I do miss that. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ray, and if you don't know, I post book content. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than what I usually post on my channel. I post a lot of book related content. However, I feel like I've had my channel for just under a year and a half now, and I feel like I haven't really talked about myself too much in this space. So I thought I have a really busy work day in terms of meetings, like my entire work day and then some. All the hours are going towards meetings. So I figured whenever I have a little bit of break between meetings or anything like that, I could answer some questions about myself so that you guys can get to know me a little bit better and you can kind of get to know me outside of just book related things. I mean, some of these questions will definitely be book related, but you'll get to know me a little bit more outside of that. I think the main thing that I've shared on my channel is that I'm a work from home, stay at home mom, but like many people might not even know what that means. In my life, I put together kind of this list of questions that I will be going through and answering. Feel free to answer any of these questions about yourself in the comments as well. I would love to get to know you all a little bit better as well. But I thought it could be fun to share some stuff just outside of reading vlogs. I feel like I never know what kind of content to post. I feel like the only content I know how to post is reading vlogs because I've been doing them for a little while. However, I do want to try posting other videos. I don't always have time to read 2+ books in a week. Sometimes I don't even read 1 book in a week just because my schedule is so busy and I don't always get time to read. So I thought it could be fun to kind of see a little bit more outside of that and kind of my daily routines and schedules and just some other things outside of just reading vlog. So I'm trying to branch out here. We'll see how it goes, but I'm going to be answering some questions whenever I have some time throughout the day, and hopefully we will get to know each other a little bit better today. So the first question that I have is, how old are you? I've never talked about my age on this channel, but I'm 27 years old. The next question is, how did you first get into reading? I used to always read as a kid. I grew up reading. My mom was a big reader, so seeing her read made me and my sisters want to read as well. We were big readers growing up. The genre I was always really into was always fantasy. It was so exciting when we got our first library cards and were able to go to the library and kind of just check out books like more than one at a time and just read them. And then I remember always going to the bookstore, and that was like the biggest treat, was to go get a book from the bookstore. Like we grew up just loving reading because my mom was always reading, so I was always watching her read and it made us want to read. I remember telling my mom, I was like, if you ever wanted to get rid of me for a couple hours a day, whatever it might be, if you just needed a break, you could just drop me at Chapters for the day and pick me up when it's done. I loved Chapters. If you don't know what Chapters is, it's Canada's version of Barnes and Noble essentially. So it's our kind of like big Canadian bookstore. I used to always want to go to the bookstore all the time, but I do have to say, like, it is mainly because my mom and just watching her read all the time made me want to read. So it's something that I instill in my kids. Like I make sure to read anytime I can around them so that they can see, and they do love reading. Like they can't read yet, but like they love looking at their books and like making up the words in their head as they're reading. And I love seeing that they're so into reading because it's been like a big thing in my life. And so I've always been into reading as a kid. I loved reading. I grew up reading. And then university kind of came around, and that's when my reading journey kind of slowed down a little bit. I was in a lot of English courses where there were tons and tons of reading. I've always been someone who prefers essays over doing tests or exams. I just like writing, reading. I've always liked it. So I did a lot of English type courses in university. Had to just stop reading outside of school because I had so many readings. Like one of my classes, we had 6 novels we had to read in one semester, and one of the books was Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens. And if you know that book, that is a massive book. So I had lots of courses like that. I was reading lots of Shakespeare. There's a lot of heavy, big books that I was reading in school. And so I really didn't have time to read outside of school. So by the time I would finish my assignments, finish my readings, really like TV, going out with friends, like that was what I did in university. So my reading outside of school, like I never stopped reading because I was reading in school. Like I was still reading books, but I stopped reading for pleasure in university. And then when I got out of it, it wasn't until I was pregnant with my kids that I picked reading back up. Actually, no, before that, I started reading again a couple years before I had my kids. I picked up It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and I was like, oh, I could get back into reading. Like I finished that book so quickly, and then that was the only book I read that year, and then I just stopped reading again for like another year. And then when I was pregnant with my kids, I picked up Verity by Colleen Hoover, and that was kind of the first book that kind of made me realize, okay, I kind of want to get back into reading now. I think it's time. So I read that. I read a few of her other books, and then it was September of that year that I picked up Fourth Wing, and I read that, and that's what kind of fully threw me back into my fantasy reading era. Like I absolutely always have loved fantasy and reading fantasy genre, so that was what kind of started my reading journey. And then I still remember, like when I bought Fourth Wing, that was one of the first big book hauls I guess I did, but it was like 5 books, I think. One of the first big book hauls I did when I got back into reading, and I bought Fourth Wing, and I also bought the entire Dreamland Billionaire series because at the time on TikTok that was like a big series to read. So I bought that too. Still haven't read that series. It's one of the first series I bought when I got back into reading. I had so much fun just like buying books, and I went absolutely crazy my first year back into reading. Like I discovered favorite book outlet, so I started ordering tons on there. I was ordering boxes and boxes of books. I went from having like maybe 5 books at the place me and my husband were staying at initially to like 3 full bookshelves now at this point. I kind of went crazy with my ordering that first year, and so I've definitely slowed down since that first year, but I still do buy books and I still have way more books on my TBR than I have read. The short and sweet of that question is I've always been a reader. Ever since I was little, I've always loved reading, and a lot of that is like thanks to my mom and seeing her always reading and being exposed to that at a very young age. And I hope my kids are the same way, where they just want to read all the time. They can't read yet, but like we do have book clubs where we'll sit down together and they'll pick up their books, I'll pick up my book. It doesn't happen often though. It happens for like maybe 10-20 minutes at a time too, before they're like, yeah, no, we want to move on to the next thing. But yeah, I'm hoping to instill that on them as well. I really want them to be into reading and like reading for their own sake. And yeah, so that's the short and sweet of it. Next question is, what genre do you read the most? So I've always been a huge fantasy reader. I think fantasy will always be my top genre. There's just something so interesting about a new world that's built from scratch, and it's so interesting to see authors build an entire world, a political system, and just elements of a fantasy world. You have to have such an imaginative kind of mindset to be able to do something like that. And I used to write fantasy when I was younger. Like I would always write little stories and things like that, and I've always wanted to be able to publish my own book one day. Like it was a huge goal of mine as a kid. I have like a book somewhere where I have so many little stories written, no idea where it is. It's probably in one of my bins at my mom's house, but I used to write so much. But yeah, fantasy has always been my favorite genre. Thriller was what got me back into reading, and then I will read romance here and there. It is nice to have in between like those big fantasy books, but I have been really getting into literary fiction as well and really enjoying that genre as well. But I will say fantasy has always and will always be my favorite genre. I just find it so fascinating, the different worlds that people can just build in their minds. I'm gonna answer one more question and then I'm going to get set up for my first meeting, and then I'll answer some more later today. What's a popular book you didn't enjoy? There's one that comes to mind like immediately. I read this book after I finished Fourth Wing, and I feel like going into it after having such an intense ending like there was in Fourth Wing was maybe not the best call, and maybe if I read it in a different circumstance I might have felt differently about it. But there is one popular book, please don't come after me, I really didn't enjoy it. It was Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I know that that's a lot of people's favorite romance book of all time. I didn't enjoy it, and that's okay. I thought it was really slow. I didn't feel like there was much to the plot. I didn't feel like there was a lot of depth to the characters, and I just remember feeling like I was just trying to get to the end of the book so I could finish it and move on to something else. Like that's the feeling I had with that book. However, if you loved it, I completely like love that for you. I just did not like that book at all. I don't even think I rated it on Goodreads at the time because I was like, I didn't want to put a 2-star rating on a book. I don't know. I didn't enjoy that book, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about it in a negative manner. I feel like if you loved it, like I love that for you. It was not for me. It was not a book for me. I could see why some people liked it, and I didn't like it at all. And I know that that's probably like a very unpopular opinion, but Archer's Voice is definitely the one that comes to mind. I am going to get set up for my work meeting, and then I will answer some more questions later on. And yeah, I will see you in a little bit. Okay, I just finished my first meeting for the day, so I thought we could answer a few more questions before my next one. The next question is, do you annotate your books or keep them pristine? So me as a kid was always somebody who was like, I don't want anything in my books. I want them in pristine condition. I would be scared to lend my books to my mom because she would just like bend the cover over the back, like dog ear pages, and I liked my books like not touched. Like I didn't want any dog earring, like it had to stay in the same condition I bought it in. I was very much so like that. However, I started annotating maybe a year and a bit ago. I had never been one, like even in school when I was doing my literary circles and all of that, I would take sticky notes and write on those and then put those into the books because I did not want to write in my books. However, I've started annotating now, and I really enjoy the process of annotating. I feel like I'm connecting a lot more with my book, and I'm able to get so much more out of it, and I'm able to kind of remember certain aspects of it better. And I just like being able to go back and look at quotes that I really loved or that stood out to me. When I annotate quotes that I love. I annotate plot points or any kind of themes and things that are going on. Like I like connecting with the book in that way, and then being able to go back. One thing that kind of gave me the push to just start annotating my books and writing in them and tabbing them was if I could go back and go through a childhood favorite series of mine and be able to see the things that were important to me then. I wish that I had done that when I was a kid. I wish I had annotated, because I feel like it would have been so special to be able to go back into my books, see what lines stood out to me then, see what made me stop and pause and want to write in my book at that point. I feel like it would have been so cool and so special. So I'm teaching my kids to annotate, to write in your books as long as you own them, because I feel like there's something so special about being able to go back. Like me in 10 years is going to be so different than me right now, and I'm going to want to look back at my books and some of my favorite books and see what stood out to me. I started annotating like just over a year ago. I love being able to write in my books. I like the idea of being able to go back to them. Like I go back to some of the books that I read. Like I read Tuesdays with Morrie last year, and I went back through that again, and I looked at some of the things that I underlined, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I loved that book so much. Like that was a quote that made me really love this book. And I just feel like there's something so special about being able to go back and seeing what stood out to you at the time and point you read it then, because things change so much and people evolve and change and your mind changes, the way that you think changes, the things that are important to you could change as well. There's so much that changes, and being able to have a timestamp on the things that mattered to you in that moment in that book and being able to see that and go back and just get to know your younger self a little bit better, because I'm so different than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So being able to see the things that stood out to me at that point in time feels like such a special thing to do. And my kids being able to go through my books and see what stood out to me and kind of get to know their mom a little bit in this day and age and this time that I'm in, it just feels so special. And it feels like a way to connect with somebody that you get to know again. Like I get to remember my younger self in that moment because I have annotated my books. You know what I mean? And if you don't annotate your books, that's totally like, you do what makes you feel best. Like I didn't annotate for so long, and even when I did, I wasn't writing in my books, and I wish that I did, but I'm glad that I do now. Like I love the process of annotating. I will never not annotate again, I think, even though it does take a lot of time when you're reading to stop and do that. I just feel like it's such a crucial part of the reading experience for me personally, and I love the idea of just, like I said, getting to go back and look. And like I'm fine with my reading experience. Like being a slow reader and annotating is definitely like, it takes me a lot longer to finish books, and I'm so okay with that because I feel like that's the whole point, taking your time with the books that you love. And when I'm annotating a lot, it usually means that I really like the book, so I just get to stay in that world a little bit longer, and I feel like that's such a special thing. So if you've ever been in a position where you've kind of been hesitant to annotate and you didn't know if you wanted to, I'd say try it out. Like why not? At the end of the day, like if you wanted to get another copy of that book in pristine condition, bookstores have thousands and thousands of copies. However, no one will ever have your annotated copy. That's kind of how I see it now, is that I could go buy a new copy if I don't like the idea of annotating a book that I've annotated, or if I want just like a fresh copy, but no bookstore will ever have my annotated copy. So if you ever wanted to try annotating, just do it. I mean, if you're really nervous about the whole idea of doing it with like a pen or anything, just use a pencil. But anyways, yeah, so I annotate now. I never used to, and that's kind of where I'm at with that. The next question is physical books, audiobooks, or ebooks. I have always to my core been a physical book person. I love the idea and the experience of holding a physical book, seeing your progress, just being able to, like, it's such a unique experience being able to hold a physical book. However, I started getting into like Kindle and all of that when I had my kids, and it would be like nighttime and I was walking around with them in the carriers and stuff. Like I couldn't hold the book because it was dark. I couldn't read like in the dark. So I started reading on my phone because I didn't want to buy a Kindle. They were pretty, like they're pretty pricey. What I did is I started reading on my phone because I was like, okay, if I can manage reading on my phone, I can get myself a Kindle because it would be really nice to read. And I will say I love my Kindle for nighttime reading. Like I love being able to get into a comfortable position, not having to like keep a certain light on. My night table light keeps my husband up at night, and so like just being able to have a Kindle where it's not going to keep him up at night while I read has been really nice at night. Like I love reading on my Kindle at night, don't get me wrong, but the act of holding a physical book, flipping the pages, all of that, like that's my favorite reading kind of experience, being able to annotate with a pen, highlighter, sticky tabbing pages. I love that experience when it comes to reading. So I definitely am a physical book person, but I love reading on my Kindle. My mom was the same way. Like she never wanted to read on a Kindle, on her phone, anything like that. Like she like always reading physical books, so maybe that's where I get it from a little bit. However, I got her a Kindle as like a thank you gift for all her help when my kids were born, and just like she stayed with me for a month, and the help I had when I went and stayed with her for a little bit with the kids and everything, like she helped so much with that. So I wanted to get her a thank you gift, and I got her one, and she ended up loving it, and now she will not pick up a physical book. Like I cannot buy her physical books because she will only read on her Kindle, so I can only get her Kindle book. So the next question is, what book would you recommend to someone who doesn't read much? There's not one book that I would say this is the book you should read to get into reading. I've had people in my life, like my family, my sister and my aunt, who did not like reading. They maybe liked reading once upon a time, but they just got out of it and stuff, and I recommended to them, I said, just pick up a thriller book. I think that if you're getting back into reading, which it also helped me get back into reading, is reading a thriller book. I feel like thriller books are so fast paced. You're constantly wanting to turn the pages. You're kind of in the story, and they move so fast that you can finish one in like a couple days. And I feel like when you finish your first book, it's a huge accomplishment after not reading for such a long time. But I just feel like thrillers are probably the best to get back into reading because they're so fast paced. Like I wouldn't recommend a literary fiction or a romance book or even like a higher, heavier fantasy as a first book to get back into reading, because those take time to get through. But thriller books are always moving, and there's always little plot twists happening, and I feel like it really grasps your attention. So for anyone who is wanting to get back into reading or wanting to get into reading in general, I'd probably recommend a thriller book. And some of the thriller books that got me back into reading were Verity by Colleen Hoover, Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, and I really liked The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Those are kind of the ones that like stand out to me when I think about the thriller books I've read and the ones that I would recommend. Any of those are great starter thriller books, I think, in my opinion. Those are kind of the ones that helped me get back into reading as well when I first started again as an adult. I would recommend a thriller book. I just think that those are the perfect books to kind of get back into reading. My aunt started reading thriller books when she got back into reading. Like it was constantly, she kept reading more thriller books and stuff. Like she really got into the genre. And same thing with my sister. She got into books again by reading thriller books, and then and I'm getting her to read Heartless Hunter so that we can read Rebel Witch together. I mean, it's taking her longer to finish that, so I don't really know if fantasy is her thing right now. She might need to jump back into thriller, but I just feel like thriller is the genre I would recommend if you wanted to get back into reading, get into reading. It's so fast paced and it's so bingeable that I just feel like that's probably the perfect kind of genre, and those are the 3 books that I would probably recommend starting with. Where is your favorite place to read? Okay, I would say like in terms of in the home, I love reading in my bed, but I recently got a reading chair. I have the, I think it's called like Beautiful by Drew Barrymore, something like that, like the Beautiful Drew chair. I had been looking for a swivel chair that was like a comfortable reading chair that I could cross my legs on, like put my legs up for a long time, and I couldn't find anything under $1,000, and I was not going to spend $1,000 on one chair. I didn't want to do that, but then I saw the Drew chair online, and then I went and looked on TikTok, and anytime I'm buying a product or like looking into wanting to get a product, I'll go on TikTok and I'll go and see what other people are saying about it, and I'll make sure that I'm like looking at ones that aren't promoted or sponsored. All the videos I saw, like the chairs looked stunning. Everyone said it was so much more comfortable in person, and I do have to agree. The chair, when I got it, I knew it was going to be comfortable just based off of the reviews that I had seen, but I didn't know it was going to be so comfortable. Like, I was pleasantly surprised. I love swivel chairs because I feel like I need to be able to like move when I'm reading or whatever. Like I am fidgety sometimes when I'm reading, but I love that chair so much. It's become my favorite place to read, where like when I'm downstairs in the kitchen doing stuff, I'm thinking about being in my chair. My kids love it. I think my husband loves it too. But yeah, my reading chair has been my favorite place to just sit and read, and I feel like I can really lock in when I'm sitting in there. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it's like my designated reading spot now that I'm just able to lock in so much more, and I love being there. And I'll have my TV on in the background, just like on mute or whatever while I'm doing it, or I'll put it on the fireplace channel. It's just been my favorite cozy spot to read. That's probably my favorite spot to read. But if we're talking about outside the house, maybe this is being in Canada, being a Canadian, like we have so much cold weather that one of my favorite things to do in the summertime is to read on a beach. And I love the idea of like reading a book on a beach. I think like reading a romance book on a beach is just kind of like a top tier reading experience. But I love the idea of reading on a beach. I didn't get to do that last summer, so this summer I'm making that a priority. I just feel like it's such a perfect environment to read in. But yeah, in my house, reading chair, outside of my house, on a beach when it's warm for like the 1.5 to 2 months we have in Canada. But I would say, yeah, those are my favorite places to read. The next question is, do you prefer reading in silence or with background noise? I would say both. I know that's not an answer to the question, but like there's some days where I need absolute silence to read, especially when it's late at night and I can't really focus too much on things. But there's some days where like I'll want to read, but I'm so tired, so like I can't have any noise around me or else I can't read and I'm just rereading the same words. However, most of the time I have some kind of background noise. Sometimes I'll do like brown noise or white noise if I really want to lock in or if I'm just like really having a hard time focusing. But other times, like I'll usually put on the TV and I'll put it on mute or very low volume, and typically I'll put on a show I've already watched, like a comfort show like The Office or Gilmore Girls or something like that. And then other times I'll put on like the fireplace channel just to kind of get like a cozier, different vibe. Sometimes I'll go on YouTube and I'll put on like an aesthetic like jazz music with a cute little background, like a cozy background and stuff. But I usually have something going on. I feel like I'm someone who I always need 2 things going on at once. If I'm watching a TV show, I need to either have a book in my hand or reading something or be on my phone at the same time. It's a really bad habit that I'm trying to break, but I feel like I'm always needing 2 things at the same time. So if I'm reading and I don't have something in the background or just like something else going on, I feel like it like sometimes I can't focus. I don't know. I know it doesn't make any sense, but I don't know. It's like a weird situation, but that's kind of where I'm at. It's like I need something in the background for the most time, but sometimes I'll do where I'll just like need complete silence. My camera's probably gonna overheat soon because it just tends to overheat. I'm gonna answer a couple more questions and get back to work. Are you a morning reader or a night reader? Morning through and through. I read so much better during the daytime and when there's light out, and I feel like I'm more in the book and my brain is so on that I can just get really invested in a world. At nighttime I find it a little bit more difficult, but with my schedule and the way that my day is, being a work from home, stay at home mom, it's really hard sometimes to be able to just read during the day. I don't really get many opportunities to, so most of my reading I do at nighttime, and so it's hard to find like that balance of being able to read during the day because my kids aren't in school, like they're still home, but I am such a morning person. Reading during the daytime is when I get a lot more reading done. I can focus and zone in when I do have the opportunities. The next one is, how many books do you read in an average month? I would say on average, I don't really know. I haven't been back into reading for long enough to, I think, have like an average. Maybe 3 books a month are kind of what's mostly doable for me, although the last couple months have been really good reading months. January I read 4 books, February I read 6 books, and so I mean I haven't finished anything in March and it's March 11th, so I would say maybe on average 3, but I feel like by the end of this year I'll have a better idea of how many books I actually read in a month, but I would say about 3. Do you set reading goals each year? I have been, and I do have a Goodreads reading goal of how many books I want to read. I can't remember if I put 35, but I'm not really attached to that number. It'd be so cool to be able to read 35 or 50 books in a year, but like I'm not attached to it. If I get there, great. If not, I'm just gonna adjust for next year. I think I read 31 books or 30 books, I can't remember. And I just decided I was gonna only read like a couple more books or 1 more book than the year prior and just kind of go off of that. But it has been a stronger reading year this year so far. I feel like I'm really back into my reading era, and last year I was struggling here and there, just like trying to find a good balance between my work, and life balance and also reading balance, and I just couldn't find it. So I'm trying to work a little bit more this year on doing that. But I don't really have set goals. They're all just kind of just, I read what I want to read, you know what I mean? Do you DNF books or push through to finish them? I soft DNF. I always know that I'm going to come back to a book. I've never actually done it before. Last year, soft DNF Red Rising. I got pretty far into Red Rising, but then it was getting pretty gory for me. I wasn't really like, I don't know, by that point I just like, I didn't feel like continuing the book. But I know a lot of people say the second book is incredible and it's worth getting through the first book. I didn't dislike the first book. I just found it getting really gory and wasn't loving the part that I was at. So I kind of just put it down. Then I haven't picked it up because I was also in the middle of a move last year and I just was focused on that and packing up and stuff. So there's a lot of books that I started last year that I didn't necessarily finish because I moved. I had to pack up all my books and everything and do that. So there's a couple books that I need to get back to, but I primarily soft DNF. Like any book that I have DNF, I've thought about going back to and that I will eventually go back to. I can't imagine not finishing books that I've started. I think I would have to at some point go back to them, but I'm a soft DNFer, not like a full-on DNFer, I think. So those are all the questions I'm going to answer right now. My camera is going to overheat. I'm going to get back to doing a little bit of work, a little prep before my next meeting, and then I will come back in a little bit and answer some more questions. But I feel like I'm having a lot of fun with this. Getting to show you parts of me and talk about things in my life that I don't necessarily get the opportunity to talk about on my channel has been really fun. I will be back in a little bit and answer some more of the questions I have. I'll see you guys in a little bit. It is the next day and we're still going to be answering some questions. I didn't have time to kind of wrap this video up yesterday. I just got really busy with the day. It's been 2 days since I last talked to you. I am going to answer a few more questions. These are kind of more personal questions. What are your hobbies besides reading? I think before being a parent, being a mom, I had a lot more time to do things and like partake in activities and hobbies and things like that. Post being a mom, I don't have as much time. So I would say like my biggest hobby outside of just being a mom and working is just reading. Prior to doing that, like I'm still someone who I very much love hockey. I love watching the NHL. My team has always been and will always be the Toronto Maple Leafs. That is my team through and through. But prior to having kids, I watched a lot of hockey. I was at the point where like, in university, I would forego studying for a test or exam if there was like an important game on or anything like that. I would literally have the Leafs games going on in the background when I was in class, like taking notes. I had it kind of like split screen style. I'd be watching the games while doing my notes and all of that. Hockey was always something that's been big, and maybe it's the Canadian in me, but I always really wanted to play hockey growing up too. But I made it up to power skating before I stopped doing any kind of skating. And then I kind of like, it was between soccer and dance and I ended up going the soccer route. So hockey was a big thing. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get to that point again where I am able to watch most of the games in a season. But yeah, I used to be an avid watcher where I would not miss a single game. Haven't been able to do that in so long. So I'm hoping that at some point I'll be able to kind of get back into hockey. But that was one of my hobbies and is kind of one of my hobbies as well. I love cooking. I actually like kind of thought maybe of going to culinary school for a little while, but I've always loved cooking, and I don't know what it is in me because my mom is like the complete opposite. She hates it. She will avoid doing it if she has to, but she'll cook, but she just doesn't like doing it. Whereas she always tells me like, you're so patient with your cooking process and everything. I love being in the kitchen. I feel like that's when I'm in my zone. That's when I feel like it's like my me time, I guess, when I'm like cooking in the kitchen and I'm by myself. I've got my music going, or I've got a video on. I just like, that's such like a calming environment. It's kind of like a way for me to reset. But if I was like cooking, if I was like trying new recipes, I like baking in terms of like baking breads and stuff like that, but I've never really been overly into baking things like cookies and cakes and that kind of stuff. I'll cook anything. I like trying different cuisines. I cook mainly like Italian cuisine. I love making homemade pasta. I love making homemade breads and things like that. So that's another one of my big hobbies that I would say like I've always loved cooking and like learning about food and learning about the process and all of that. And then there's probably some other things that I'm forgetting right now, but those are kind of like the big, I guess, hobbies of mine that I have outside of just reading. I like going for things like walks and hikes and things like that during the summertime when it's warm. I like traveling a lot too. I've been to quite a few places in my life and I've been very appreciative of that, but I love traveling, seeing new places and just exploring the world. There's so much to explore. You're never going to get to explore everything in your lifetime. So traveling is a big thing for me as well. And when my kids get a little bit older, I have so many travel plans. I want to take them abroad and do school for a year somewhere else and just other things like that. But I would love to just have them be able to travel and really work hard so that we can travel in the future together as a family. Favorite comfort movie or TV show? Okay, so starting with movie, through and through, my favorite movie hands down of all time is Rocky. Like the very first one has such a special place in my heart, and I think it's because it's a movie that my dad and I bonded over when I was younger. The first Rocky movie, and I love all the Rocky movies in the entire franchise, but the first Rocky movie will always have that special place in my heart because it's something that my dad and I bonded over. I would say Rocky is one of my all-time favorite movies. It is my all-time favorite movie and also very much so a comfort movie for me. I love that movie. And then in terms of TV shows, I have quite a few comfort TV shows, and in no particular order, but I love Gilmore Girls. I love The Office. I love Emily in Paris. I love Nashville. Nashville is such a good show. Oh my gosh. I remember the first time watching that, like I was obsessed with that show. That show made me cry. I loved it. One of my all-time favorite singers is in that show. It's Lennon Stella. I love Lennon Stella's music, her voice. I got to see her at Osheaga years ago. I can't even remember when she performs, but I got to see her at Osheaga years ago, and then I had tickets to see her in concert as well after she did her first album release, but then that's the time when COVID was happening, so it didn't end up happening. And she hasn't really released a new album or anything since, so I don't know if she's ever gonna go back on tour, but she's one of my all-time favorite singers. I love her voice so much. Yeah, she's from the show Nashville, and if you have never seen Nashville or don't even know what it's about, it's one of like the best TV shows, but it's essentially about a bunch of people who live in Nashville. A lot of them are in the music industry, and there's a lot of like singing and all of that going on. There's a lot of drama, a lot of like conflicts and relationships and things like that. It's just so good. It also has Connie Britton, and oh my god, I can't remember his name. Like his name is Deacon in the show, but I cannot remember the actor's name. Charles something. He played the dad in Outer Banks, like Sarah Cameron's dad in Outer Banks, but I cannot, let me just see. Charles Estin, but he played Deacon Claiborne in Nashville, and I love the show so much. And it's got, yeah, Connie Britton, it's got Lennon Stella, her sister Maisie Stella. They're from Canada too, Lennon and Maisie, and they're actually like not too far from where I lived and I grew up and stuff, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite comfort shows, and I have box sets for pretty much every one of my favorite comfort shows. Like I have the entire Office box set, DVD set with all the deleted scenes and extra scenes and stuff like that, as well as Gilmore Girls. I have all of that with deleted scenes and everything. I love having every, like my favorite shows and movies and stuff. Like I have the entire Rick and Morty DVD set as well, and so I just love having comfort shows on DVD because, like, I don't know, I just like having it. I have been looking for the Nashville DVD set for so long, but I cannot find it anywhere. I don't know why, but yeah, that would be a dream come true to just have the entire Nashville DVD set as well, because that's one of my like comfort shows that I could rewatch over and over and over again. But I would say those are kind of my comfort TV shows. I might be missing a few. Those are the main ones that are my comfort shows are The Office, Gilmore Girls, Emily in Paris is kind of like my guilty pleasure comfort show, and then Nashville. I would say those are the ones that I kind of love going back to over and over and over again. I can never get sick of them. The next question is favorite artists or songs. I feel like I talked a little bit about this in the previous question, but I love Lennon Stella. I've always loved her music. It's just like such a different vibe, but like she's one of my favorite artists. But if we were to talk of like my favorite song of all time, it has been for the longest time, ever since I can remember, probably always will be, Don't Stop Believing by Journey. That is like my all-time favorite song. It's like the last song we played at our wedding when me and my husband got married. Besides like Closing Time was like our actual like closing out song to like get everyone out of the venue so that we didn't have to pay more for people being there for longer. But Don't Stop Believing by Journey has always been my all-time favorite song. I feel like Summer of '69 too by Bryan Adams is also up there, but anyone who knows me knows that that is like my all-time favorite song. It's a song that I could listen to on repeat over and over and over and over again and never get tired of it. But I would say, yeah, like Lennon Stella, I love her music. I like Tate McRae a lot. Growing up, I just remember like some of my top artists being Hilary Duff, Shania Twain. I loved like Journey. Oh, and I also like on the other end of it, it's like I love The Fray and Nickelback and One Republic and all of those artists. This is a really hard question because I don't know. I have so many favorite artists, but all I know is that like my all-time favorite song for as long as I can remember has always been Don't Stop Believing by Journey. And then like artists, like there's so many good artists out there. Like that'll be my answer for now, and then it could change later. What is your favorite season of the year? Fall. I've been a fall person for as long as I can remember. I love the colors in the fall. Like I love when the leaves change colors and it's sweater weather. I would say like 85% of my wardrobe is sweaters, and so fall is just kind of like my time of the year to bring out all my clothes that I own. But fall has always been my favorite. I don't mind spring either. I think spring's really nice, but I feel like fall for me is the perfect weather where I'm not too hot, not too cold, but I can wear my nice outfits and sweaters and everything like that. And then for me, like in Canada, winter is like one extreme and summer is the next extreme. So I just feel like fall is the perfect medium for me. Like I love fall. I've always loved fall. Always been my favorite season for as long as I can remember. What's your dream travel destination? I guess the first thing that comes to mind is Switzerland. I've always wanted to go and explore Switzerland, but another one that's kind of crept up there is Scotland. The idea of going to Scotland in the fall and seeing all the colors, I just feel like it's gonna give a dark academia vibe, and I just feel like it'd be so beautiful to see in the fall time. But Switzerland has always been up there for me. I have gone to Switzerland once, but it was for like a little layover from when I was traveling to Italy. So we stopped there and we were just there for literally not even half an hour at the airport. So I haven't really seen Switzerland, but Switzerland is definitely up there for places that I want to go and see, as well as Scotland. I mean, Portugal's creeping up there as well. I always want to go to Italy. Italy will always be my favorite place in the world from my experience there. It was incredible. Yeah, honestly, like Scotland, Switzerland are probably the top two places. Croatia is also one, and Greece I haven't been to and I would love to go. Those are kind of like my top travel destinations right now. Do you prefer staying in or going out? I am such a homebody. I love staying in. Pre-COVID me was someone who loved going out, being with friends, like going out to clubs and bars and hanging out outside of just being at home. Post-COVID me got so used to, like, I was so extroverted before it, but I became an introverted extrovert. I don't know how to explain it, but I love being home. I work from home, my kids are home, and so I feel like I'm always at home, but I've just gotten so used to being at home and I love being at home. The idea of going out always feels like a huge task, but then whenever I do go out, I have fun. But I am such a homebody. I love staying home. I love watching movies at home. I love reading at home. I don't know if it's become a problem, but I just love being at home. And I mean, I will go out and I will enjoy my time when I go out and hang out with friends and stuff like that, but I'm such a homebody where I'd rather have my friends come over in your pajamas, watch a movie together, read together, whatever it might be, like bake or cook together. I would prefer that over going to like a restaurant or just going out or whatever it might be. What's a random fun fact about you? I don't know if this is like a fun fact, but I used to play competitive soccer growing up. I loved soccer so much. I played competitively for a long time, and then it was really sad when I had to stop playing because my mom really just wanted me to focus on school. I always thought for the longest time though I was gonna go into soccer and I was gonna do that. Like that was a huge dream of mine, but it didn't end up happening. But I did play competitive for a long time, and I do miss that era of my life. Like I wish that I was still playing soccer, and I've thought about joining adult leagues and things like that. I just feel like it's been so long since I last played. I was always on my school teams and everything like that as well. But yeah, I would say like soccer is just something that was such a huge part of my life and that I always thought that I was going to go into. And I also was very much into acting, and I wanted to go into acting as well. I was always in like all the school plays, and I was acting a lot and doing all these stuff. I wanted to audition for Degrassi really badly, but it didn't work out with my schedule. If you don't know, Degrassi is kind of like a Canadian high school drama TV show, and it was really popular like a year. I can't even remember when it came out, but I loved watching Degrassi. It's actually where Drake first got his start. Nina Dobrev was on Degrassi, Sinead Grimes. It's a show where you can only get on it if you're Canadian, but Degrassi was something that like was such a big thing, and I remember wanting to audition for it so badly. Acting was a huge part of my life. I wanted to go to school for acting, but then I had people tell me that I should do something a little more realistic, like go into something where you can actually have a fallback if you don't make it. So that kind of crushed my hopes and dreams. I did want to do that for a long time. I loved the idea of being up on stage in front of people and being able to perform, and I loved the idea of performing. I loved doing it all. Like I loved every part of it, and I thought that that was something that I was going to go to. I feel like there were so many different paths that I could have gone down, and it would have been so interesting to see each and every one of them. But that's the thing about life, is you get one path, you go down one path, and that's where you're at, but you can always like make decisions later in life. Soccer was a big part of my life that I thought I was going to go into. So was acting, and I thought I was going to go into something along that line. I always think that I wanted to do something in like a creative field. I don't really know if that's like a fun fact, but that's kind of something about me that you don't know. And the last question I'm going to answer is, what's something small that makes you really happy? My family. I love spending time with my family. I love being with my sister, my mom, my kids, my husband, my in-laws. Like I just love being around family so much, and literally any activity with family. My mom, when she came to visit me back in December, we would just sit and read at night once the kids were in bed. Like we were just reading together all the time. That's one of my favorite core memories from her being here, was just being able to, we read The Nightingale together. It's just like my favorite thing, and like just spending time with my family, like going to coffee shops, going on little day adventures, like just hanging out together. Even if we're cleaning and we're just talking together, like I love being around my family, and I feel like that's when I'm happiest, is when I'm talking to my family. I'm someone who, I talk to my mom every single day. I talk to my sister every single day. Like we don't live in the same area, so we're always FaceTiming each other, but like we'll FaceTime each other multiple times a day if we're both off from work or whatever it might be. Like I'm always talking to my family. There's not a day that goes by where I'm not talking to my family. I'm just very close with everybody, and we just have that kind of bond where like it feels weird when we don't see or hear each other or talk to each other every day. I think my mom was really busy and working quite a bit for a couple days, and like our schedules didn't align, so I didn't talk to her for like 2 days, and it felt like we hadn't talked for a year because we talk every day. But yeah, I would say like my family is just, I know it's not like a small thing, but it just makes me so happy. Or when my kids just do little things, so much of what they do makes me happy too, because they'll do things, or they'll like repeat things, or start saying sentences, and I just like look at them in awe. One of my kids is so focused when she's coloring, and she's so into it when she's doing activities like that, that it's just like sometimes I'll just stand there and I'll be like, that is so incredible to see someone so passionate and so interested in something. They're just both so passionate about things, and it just makes me so happy to just like be around them and see them. And like these are people who are learning things for the first time, and they're so smart in everything that they do. Yeah, my family makes me really happy. Those are all the questions that I have for today. I hope you got to know me a little bit better. If you stayed this long, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to keep up with my content, and I hope to see you in the next one.